Someone kicked mine. I can't believe it. You either are into the X system or the GFX system. How do you feel about the camera's sharpness?
Can't go back to my X-T3s. I don't know if I have buyer's remorse, but I do feel like I kind of wish I still had it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while. Albus was like, you know what, Harris, let's record a video. It's been too long.
Yeah.
What do you have in the mind, man? What's the agenda? What are we going to talk about today?
I think today we're going to talk about, X-H2s has been out for about 1.5 years now. And we've been using it solidly.
True, true.
We've used it for many different things. You've been using it for a lot of...
Yeah, corporate, real estate, everything and anything. It's been like a jack of all trades kind of camera for me, pretty much. I can't go back to my X-T3s. So that's kind of like a little, I guess we can dive into that in this episode. And guys, if you're watching, feel free to put it on in the background if you're driving, whatever. It's just going to be a casual chat, a little bit of a ramble, exploring what's been happening in the past 1.5 years.
Yeah, and I think during that time, obviously, you said you've been using it for corporates and stuff like that. I've also been using it for corporates, helping you out. Which has been good. It's been great.
Yeah, man, making business, making the money.
And I also have shot a feature film with it. Shot that last year in January, which was very interesting. We managed to get the Fuji cinema lenses with that. Thanks to Fujifilm for that. Shout out to them. A couple of short films, and yeah, it's been a mixture of stuff really, filming with it. So I guess we really kind of wanted to talk about like what the pros and cons have been so far, rather than like I don't think like in this kind of video will be suggestions for like upgrades, but just the pros and cons, because that's a whole entirely different
So
topic.
how has it been helpful? What would you recommend it for? What are the strengths where perhaps it might not be your first choice?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we could probably talk about, because we both came from the X-T3 going over to the X-H2s, and there definitely is like a jump.
So let's start there then.
Yeah.
How would you say, coming from the X-T3, what was the jump like?
I think the main things for me were the flip screen, like it just kind of...
Before you give your hot take, okay, this is a hot take technically. Flip screen or no flip screen?
Flip screen.
You know? Oh, okay.
Yeah, flip screen. Like, wait, you mean like as in the flip screen we have now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think...
Are you pro flip screen or you're anti flip screen?
Nah, pro flip screen.
Because I mean, before, just for the record, like we were both like anti flip screen. Before the camera was released.
Yes. I think there is... I guess there's some situations in which I kind of still wish I had the X-T3 screen. And I'm kind of looking at Sony and Panasonic where they've got that hybrid.
Yes.
They've got basically like everything you need to shoot. And I think that should be the standard going forward.
Right.
Because it kind of makes sense, right? You want to be discreet. You just want to like tilt the screen up. Listen, I don't know, what is it? Tilt, pan, flip, whatever. Just pull it out and then you can look down. We'll just call it that. But yeah, I think the screen has been one of my favorite things, because especially if you're doing like content creation, just flipping out and looking at yourself and knowing your frame, it's just been a lifesaver. Like I was using a little hack with the GoPro display mod when I figured out that it could
janky, man. It was so janky.
Yeah. When I figured out that I could make it work with the X-T3, I was like, yes, this is cool. I don't need like a 5-inch monitor on top. But, you know, practicalities is, it just kind of, it wasn't suitable, you know. And with that crappy little micro HDMI thing. So screen's been like one of the major life improvements.
I have to agree. I think for me, it kind of feels like I used to love my Canon 6D Mark II, right? And it feels like I've got all the things I love about that in the SLR style body, but with all the things I love about Fuji, I still can have my aperturing, you know?
Yeah.
So I have to say I have been converted slightly, but when it comes to doing a few like events where you want to be discreet, it'd be nice sometimes to just use your little pinky finger and flick up the screen and just have a nice angle.
Yeah, I do. There are, as I said, there are situations where I miss that, and I think like sometimes when I've gone back to the X-T3, and tried to shoot with it, it kind of, I don't know. It's just once you've just been upgraded to like the body, you kind of just look at the X-T3 and just go, yeah, maybe
Can't be bothered.
I'm just gonna leave you on the side now. It's like, yeah, you know, it was nice and it was a great time. I mean, the second thing for me, obviously, was battery life.
Yes, I have to agree with that. Let's put it this way: I don't have to buy as many batteries.
Yeah,
Like, that's a huge thing for me.
I mean, I don't know if it's because of the age of the camera. Maybe that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
But like the X-T3 batteries, as soon as you put the battery in, after like 10, I could just walk away and come back and already I've lost the bar, you know? Whereas with the X-H2s, I'm actually getting like decent amount of time, like at least an hour and a half, an hour. You know, I feel confident in taking the camera out and not having to worry too much about battery. I mean, granted, most of the time I have a power bank plugged in, but it by itself is like, it lasts a long time. So
True. I have to agree. Yeah, man. I did think to myself, oh, if they bring out something which is like X-T3, new battery, good sensor, 6K. Whoa, wow, they brought an X-T5. But for some reason, I thought I would love something like that. But when they released it, I was like, meh.
yeah,
I don't know what it is. I thought that would be like the perfect amalgamation of all the things that I wanted, but then when it actually came into fruition, I was like, I actually got a second body. I was like, you know, I'd rather just get another X-H2s.
Yeah, I feel like in the Fuji line right now, the X-H2s is where it's at for video, and the others have got some, you know, they're not bad. Like X-H2's got 8K, and if you're into that, X-T5 is still kind of like, it's kind of like the older brother to the X-T3. It doesn't really feel like it's major leaps ahead in terms of like video. I mean, it is, if you do love that body style, which I did love the X-T3 body style, I've just kind of now gotten used to.
Here's another thing we can talk about.
Yeah.
So another thing that differentiates from the X-T3, that it goes back to my Canon 6D Mark II kind of comparison, just being able to switch the different modes.
Okay, yeah.
Right, for me, I thought to myself when I was using the X-T3, when I moved over, I was like, switching between photo and video was only like 2-3 clicks.
Yeah.
But switching the frame rates after every single time was a headache. And I don't like the movie mode because the touchscreen isn't that responsive as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
Like having to slide, and then it was a nightmare. But this really literally reminds me of my 6D Mark II. You literally just flick the switch.
Yeah.
Settings are where they need to be. If I want to shoot B-roll, I'll just go to my B-roll channel.
Yeah.
You know what I
get
mean?
What you're saying, yeah. I'm trying to remember. So I've had a couple of cameras, probably like I had a Canon 600D, the original poor man's vlogging camera. And then I had a Panasonic GH4. I had a Canon C100, which I loved that camera. Really kind of regret getting rid of that. And then the Fuji, I actually remembered that I actually had a Fuji X-70.
You didn't tell me this.
Yeah,
I made a whole video about it.
I sold a lot of stuff and I bought an X70 and
Wait, was this before or after my video?
this is before. Like this is like a
You
long time.
You didn't even comment and be like, yo, I had one. I'm learning about it for the first time now.
Well, it was just all the hype. Everyone was like, oh yeah, the X70. And I was like, what is the X70? And I was like looking at it and I was like, I had that camera before. I bought it because I thought I could use it as a vlogging camera because I had a Canon M5.
Oh, it's not a good vlogging camera, man.
Well, I realized that afterwards. And the reason why I sold it was because the autofocus was slow as hell. Like, it's so slow. But was one of my favorite cameras to take out.
It fit in your pocket. Yeah. The quality of the files are nice. I don't know. I don't know if I have buyer's remorse, but I do feel like I kind of wish I still had it. It's just sometimes, but then I have to talk myself out of it and be like, no. You got your 18mm f2, just put that on a body and it just feels compact again.
Yeah, I don't think...
It was fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy it again because it's just way
You can't now.
Oh, well, I mean, secondhand and stuff.
Bro, I got it at like £400 off eBay, right?
Really?
I made that video, and then like 2 years later, now they're going for like £500-600.
See, I started to think like these quirky Fujifilm cameras are investments. Like you don't buy them to use them, you buy them to like keep them and then sell them because they just seem to be. It's bizarre. It's the only brand where prices go up.
Really?
Well, I mean, like no one's paying more for a Canon. No one's paying more for a Sony. Like Fujifilm, the X100, it's just absurd. Like, how can you can actually make more money from it than when you
True.
bought it now? Like, and it's crazy. But I think we're gonna start to see prices drop now.
I hope so, because man, like, I love photography and video because it's like you get to have a job where you play with cameras, right? Like, it's the best job in the world,
Yeah.
especially if you love cameras. But it does feel like a bit of a piss take.
Yeah, I think that was one of the weirdest. Like I've noticed a lot of camera trends and a lot of like camera stuff, but this is the only time I've ever known a camera to go up in price past its retail value because of hype. And it's just been like, I'm sure Fujifilm is just laughing at like how much money they're making, you know, because it's like, oh, we sold out everything. And, you know, even the XT4 was at one point, I saw it was worth more than what it was brand new. It's crazy.
True. That's true. I personally think it was. The thing is, during that era, it was COVID, right? So you had supply chain issues. You had majority of people had disposable income because they weren't working, but they were still getting paid. So they were like, okay, well, I can treat myself to something nice.
Yeah.
And I'm into watches as well. So the watch market had a similar thing that everything just shot up.
Okay.
Because supply chain issue, no more manufacturing was happening.
So
demand went up.
Productivity went down.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're starting to see a gradual kind of everything kind of going back to normality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean,
we'll see. I think you're gonna have to see what happens with the new release on the 20th of February.
Yeah, the X100 what 6?
I don't know what they're gonna call it.
The name. Like what was it? What was the name? It was F, and then X100. Wait, there was I don't know. All I know is X100F, X100V, and now there's the 6, which I don't like the name of that.
What do we call it? Let me look it up.
X100V. I mean, you could call it the V1. I personally just think they should come out with another letter for it because it just sounds horrendous. Like X100S. That would be cool.
VI?
VI. Or maybe AI. Will they implement AI technology into it?
Because Roman numerals, isn't it? That's what they're using.
Yeah, but before that was F.
True. Oh, I'm not going to comment, bro.
Forget about Fujifilm.
I'm not going to comment.
It's better than Sony's anyway. Sony's Jesus. Yeah, so we got off track. We were talking about somehow...
XT3.
Yeah,
the upgrade with the X-H2s. We talked about...
battery. We talked about screen and the body as well.
My main thing for me was just flicking between the different modes. So you have talking head, B-roll, photography.
Yeah, the custom settings on here are much better. Keeping all your settings
organized.
Yeah. I don't have the problem. So I don't know about you, but on my XT3, sometimes my camera just resets all the settings. And I know that's to do with the internal battery, but I feel like it happens more on the XT3 and it hasn't happened to me on the X-H2s.
So I used to have that issue a lot. And there's actually a Fuji Acquire app.
Yeah.
That I don't know, have I shown it to you?
Yeah. I think you could see.
I think we had it on the job once where my camera reset and I just basically plugged it back in and I just hit go back to my previous settings that I saved and it was like instantly done. I looked up on Reddit and someone said that there is an internal battery. In order to charge that internal battery, you're going to have to plug in the camera USB-C.
And let it charge basically.
Yeah, because that's the way it will actually charge, not via the battery. So I think what I've been doing now every month, I kind of just plug it in via USB-C for like half an hour and just ever since, or if I haven't turned it on in a very long time, I will plug it in for 15 minutes via USB-C, let it charge for a little bit, and then switch it back on, and then typically it doesn't reset.
So the advice is to visit your side piece XT3 now and again, give it a little love.
Give it a little juice.
Yeah, a little juice. Or in my case, try and just actually be bothered to put it together back in its box and sell the damn thing.
My phone keeps buzzing. It's really annoying. Oh, is it your phone?
I think it's mine.
Oh, for God's sake.
I'm popular at the moment. Yeah, I'll put focus. Yeah, so XT3 upgrades. Obviously, I think the biggest thing for me was F-Log2
Okay.
and the view assist. So I shoot in F-Log a lot, like, but I'd say 95%. Only if I'm doing corporates with you will I ever not.
Because I don't shoot with F-Log too.
Yeah, like if I'm not shooting for Harris, then every single piece of my work is in F-Log2.
Right.
Pretty much F-Log2.
How do you find the? Because I think a lot of people, when they're hearing this you know, I think a lot of things that will pop into their mind would be a common question. Perhaps would be like, how is the shadow and the noise when you recover? You know, when you open up the shadows and stuff like.
Actually, like F-Log2.
Does it get too grainy or is it all right?
No. I actually think it's a lot cleaner. It's a lot cleaner. F-Log2 for me, just image-wise, you know, you get more dynamic range. You get much better. And I think the main thing about F-Log2 was midtones. You can really actually just dial in midtones perfectly. Like there's just something about it. And it just feels more aesthetically pleasing compared to like normal F-Log was great, but it kind of feels when you compare the two and you really kind of manipulate the files, you start to see like, okay, I can push the midtones much further, or I can crush them, like expand them. There's just so much more detail in there than compared to like F-Log. F-Log is just like a standard. It just feels like a standard log profile, but F-Log2 feels like it gives you that more juice and more punch, you know.
Right.
Especially for film, like you really want your midtones to be kind of the best feature of the camera. So
yeah.
And you shoot Eterna.
No, yeah. So I shoot Eterna. Reggie also talks about this as well because I remember I gave him my little secret thing. So basically, go into your settings, get your highlights and your shadows, bring them into the opposite side so you can kind of get the maximum dynamic range. Go to dynamic range 400. That way you will be able to, it will go to base ISO, I think of like, is it 600, 640?
640, yeah.
Yeah. And that will give you the same equivalent dynamic range of F-Log. I don't think it's the same with F-Log2, but from the way it feels, it seems like it's got better dynamic range than regular F-Log from the XT3 anyway. So for me, it's an upgrade regardless. The reason why I shoot this way is because with F-Log2, I tried it, very flexible, very malleable. You can definitely get what you want. There is a lot of tweaking that needs to be done. And my style of work is very much in and get the hell out quick as possible. I need to.
Yeah.
But I also want to have some level of flexibility with shadows, highlights, and if I'm in, you know, if you're doing a house tour and then you're in one room and going to the other room, I want to be able to kind of like, you know, recover my highlights a little bit or kind of open up the shadows a little bit. So in order to do that, this allows me to have best of both worlds where you can just kind of copy and paste your settings along. It will look good.
Yeah.
But then also if exposure changes for whatever reason, or if you want to, you know, you were shooting daylight this whole time and then you hit the white balance checker, it will correct and it won't look too funky.
I've used your settings. Now, I think it's just a case of like...
Taste.
Yeah, it's taste. And I think your workflow, you know what to do with your image. I tried. I couldn't get it to work. And I think it's not... And I don't think that's like... Because I've seen your... Obviously, your edited files look great and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you see my work, you wouldn't question like how it was shot.
Yeah,
it just looks like
looks good.
You know, it looks fine. It's
yeah. It looks good, and I think that's a very important thing for people to realize is to choose how they prefer to work. You know, I have to have, for me, my personal work. Like I just have to have F-Log. If it gave me the option to shoot RAW, I would love to shoot RAW. And I know you can shoot ProRes RAW, but the file sizes are huge and I don't know. I still need to kind of work that out. There might be a couple of projects where I shoot ProRes RAW. You know, all the hype with the creator using the FX3 recording externally to ProRes RAW. So there might be a possibility that I start shooting in ProRes RAW just to kind of see, really get. I don't know if that will actually give me the best out of the camera, but if it gives me a more organic feeling out of the X-H2s, then definitely for like narrative filmmaking, that's the route that I will go down. Which actually could lead us to our next topic. In how do you feel about the camera's sharpness? The X-H2s, by the way.
You know what? I quite like it.
Really?
I think it's not, hot take, it's not too sharp. Here's why. Okay. For my use case, I do a lot of like corporate events, a lot of interviews. Right. I even shot a special with comedian K Kurd. Right. I was on his tour.
Yeah.
Right. And this is going to be released in probably a week or two, probably from this video. So if you're watching this, definitely check it out. It's really cool. We filmed in the Apollo, right? And throughout his whole tour, I've been archiving all his shows, even though I don't technically need to, but I just wanted to as safety. And what I did when it came to the Apollo, he wanted to then say, hey, look, let's turn this into kind of like, to commemorate the tour. Let's put out the full set that we recorded. And I was like, in order to do that, we're going to have to make cuts and, polish it, tidy it up. So I was able to punch in by like 200 to 300%, and you wouldn't tell.
Okay.
Because the sharpness held up so much.
Okay, I can see.
So in terms of, it's a functional thing that works for me in my workflow. For you, I can see why you might run into some issues.
Yeah, I think image-wise, it definitely like is an improvement over the X-T3, and so there's this thing in when we want clarity in our image, right? And this is kind of like a paradox. We want a detailed image, but we don't want it over sharpened in the narrative cinematic world. So like I want a camera to give me as much detail as possible. Like I really want to like see skin and stuff like that. But at the same time, I feel like the X-H2s is 2 notches. Like you can go to the minus setting, is it -4 sharpness, which is actually what I shoot. On the X-T3, I actually left it at 0 because I felt like it was at the right spot.
Okay.
But on the X-H2s, when I did my testings, and it was like at 0, it was way too sharp. At -4, I feel like I'm a step. I feel like I need a -6. If I hit a -6, I feel like I would get a less processed image, and it would just make it that ever so slightly more organic for me.
What about your Pro Mist?
Even with the Pro Mist, actually, the best ever image I ever got out of this camera so far was using the 7 Artisans 25mm lens with a. Actually, I didn't use a Pro Mist, but that lens itself is like not clinically sharp, and it actually gives you really nice kind of character. So lenses do have a massive impact.
I have to agree with you there, because when I use my 18mm f2 for photography, there's something about it where there is beautiful clarity. So like if you shoot a portrait and then you zoom into someone's eyes, like everything's nice. But at the same time, there is this kind of like filmic quality to it, because people say it's like Fuji's worst lens, which I don't really care. But for me personally, like the functionality and the fun of it, I get my best ever images out of them, especially when I'm traveling or doing documentary style behind the scenes work. Like the quality is definitely there. And I do love the 18mm f1.4, which we're shooting on right now, by the way, because that's a super sharp lens. But the 18mm f2 is not as sharp as that, but I can definitely, I'm actually starting to appreciate that as a feature now.
Okay.
As a lens not being too sharp.
So
I think, you know what, maybe try those like quote-unquote cheap
lenses,
the ones which give you those artistic kind of like characteristics. The new lenses, like the new 1.4s, I feel like you kind of need to put a Pro Mist or something on it, because it is a bit too hyper sharp.
I think it's quite interesting to see in comparison to like other cameras how they handle their image in terms of video. And the thing about cameras for me is that Fuji gives, I don't know what it, we just call it aesthetic. It just gives me like a really nice aesthetic that I like when I'm filming with it. colors wise and what the image is kind of like telling me, but I do feel it's too sharp. But that's the reason why I want to start moving over to ProRes
Right.
RAW, because from what I understand is that it actually just removes all that sharpening processing.
Really?
Apparently so. Now, I have heard about some quirks now, because obviously, and I'm not going to get into technical detail here because I won't lie and pretend that I know what I'm talking about. But obviously, the X-Trans sensor is different to a Bayer sensor. And apparently, ProRes was designed for Bayer sensors. So Fuji does something where it converts. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to pretend that I knew what it's not entirely designed for ProRes RAW. And I was seeing some testing where people were saying like there's something missing from the ProRes RAW, or it doesn't give you as much information as it's supposed to do and stuff.
Tom, if you're watching, please leave a comment down below and explain to us what the hell is going on.
Yes. I want to personally just start shooting more ProRes RAW and testing out the images, and really kind of get the best organic image out of this camera. And that's an important thing to mention. Not the best settings or best image out of the camera, but the best organic, because your corporate filmmaking would be a completely different best of. Your settings would be completely different to get the best out of that. And for me, like, I want to get rid of that over processing, and I believe that the only way to do that might be through ProRes RAW. So that's something that I need to start testing and thinking about.
I think that's good though, because what ends up happening is like people get a camera and then after 6 months they just switch to another one, and you never truly got the most out of it. I feel like with us, we were with the X-T3 for so many years that we knew that camera like inside out. We knew how the image would look before we even film anything. We knew which ISO would work. You just know it like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
And I feel like with this camera, even though it's a Fuji camera, and if you could easily match it to the X-T3.
Yeah.
Quite easily, if you did like a kind of, let's say with a second camera angle, no one would know unless we said anything, right?
Yeah.
But where was I going with this?
You were talking about.
Okay, with this, I still feel like I'm learning it. Even after a year and a half, I still feel like I'm learning and I'm figuring the camera out.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. There's a lot of things in there that like I haven't utilized properly yet, and I hope we are still in a position where the X-H2s will still get updates. And there are rumors that there's more updates coming.
Bro, I hope so, because man's not happy about that.
Yeah, because I did a video recently on the GFX 100 Mark II getting like, I mean, it's kind of crazy to me that this is a video-centric camera.
Doesn't have the red box when you hit record.
Yeah, no red box. Like right now we've got like a little red dot flashing that you can barely see. And the one thing that really annoyed me was the subject tracking in video. Like you can just tap and it will just follow whatever the subject is, which is like a basic, like my Canon M5 that I had that feature, and that was years ago. So how have we not got that yet on the X-H2s? And if they only implement that on the X-H3s or the next version of this camera, I will be not very happy.
I think, look, I don't think it's to do with the camera. I think it's to do with Fuji, because they had Kaizen, and I think what they did, I think a great example was the X-T2.
Yeah.
They pushed that camera to the absolute limits of its hardware.
Yeah.
And, like from when it was released to what it was before the end of its like on sale cycle or whatever you want to call it, it was a completely different camera. I have the XS10.
Yeah.
And I think the form factor is brilliant. It's definitely a great companion to the X-H2 or X-T3 if you want like a nice vlogging camera. But here's my problem with this, right? Like the back scrolling button, you can't use it. You can't make it a dedicated ISO button.
Right. Okay.
You have to use their like ISO button.
Yeah.
Press the button, then you can scroll through the ISO.
Okay.
And it was the same thing when this camera was released. Do you remember? Like you had to hit the ISO button, then go through the menu to find like through the little rolling panel thing to choose your ISO. When coming from the X-T3, where you can kind of use the button to scroll.
Yeah.
And then you have I had an XT30, for example, and you just changed all the settings to be consistent across all the cameras. So when I'm on a shoot and I just need to quickly pick up a camera, muscle memory will just follow the routine that you have.
Yeah.
When I had the XS10, it completely threw me off guard because whenever I picked that up, I'm like, I would miss them. It would throw me. It would just kind of mess up my flow.
Yeah, it's an adjustment.
They fixed this camera because everyone created enough noise. They released XS20. Still haven't addressed it. I'm like, what the?
Yeah, it's kind of. I think like right now,
It's a Kaizen issue, man.
From what I'm seeing from Fujifilm is that they picked up hype around the brand, and clearly when they went from like the XT3 to the XT4, they tried to make an XT4 like vlogger focused, and then they pissed off a lot of photographers because of the screen. And then that's why the XT5 has gone back to the photography.
Yeah, because street camera centric and all that.
Because it is a kind of, I mean, it's built like a photography camera, whereas we can see like the X-H2s is built like a hybrid. And I think along the way, it's kind of like after the XT4, they were like, right, we need to start being more clear about how we're going to differentiate our models. And then they had like the X-H2, which was like the high resolution camera, X-H2s video centric. XT5 was like your photography, not purist, but like leaning way more towards photography and being a hybrid camera still. And then you've got like the X Pro, which they haven't updated for the Pro 4 yet, which I imagine they will do.
I'm hoping to do something with it.
Yeah, so like I'm sure like X Pro 4 will come out. But I feel like they started to, in this generation, said, okay, we're going to now go like this path, down this path, down this path, down this path for these cameras. But then I feel like they were trying to heavily push people because, so the natural progression is, if you're a filmmaker, is like, if you shoot with hybrid systems, you kind of like, as you're getting more work and you get more serious, you want to kind of like have an ecosystem of hybrid and then your main cinema camera. And I feel like what Fujifilm, from what I've gathered that they're trying to do, is push people onto the medium format GFX system,
right?
And be like, because the 100 Mark II, to me, is like they're trying to now say that this is the flagship video camera that they have, and they were like, it's got all these video features and all this stuff, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, if I'm going to spend that much money on a video camera, I definitely am not going to spend it just on a GFX 100 Mark II, because that to me is overkill. The size of it, the lenses.
I think that's the main thing, is the lenses. Like, I keep talking myself out of buying a GFX, even just for like real estate photography, because it's like, okay, you go on MPB, you snoop around on eBay, and you're like, you know what? It's not so bad if you think about it. If you get a secondhand model and you make a few compromises here and there, you can get into GFX quite comfortably now, especially if you can afford a regular like X-H2.
Yeah.
It's when you go into lenses, you're like, okay, do I go manual or do I go autofocus? And if you're used to an autofocus workflow, then you're like, actually, it will ruin my workflow if I went to a manual focus.
Yeah.
And then when you start looking at autofocus lenses, you're like, this costs more than the camera.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but then I'm going to have to compensate and replace for my previous kit. And it's basically you end up having two kits again.
Yeah, that's my issue. Is like, I don't want to change systems, and I don't want to change lens mounts, and I don't want to spend twice the money for the same result. It doesn't make sense to me. That's why, because if you go to Canon, for example, and
someone in the comments going to be like, it's not the same results, though, bro.
Well, the thing is like,
it's different results, bro.
You want to have an A and B camera setup, right? And if I have my A camera as a cinema camera and my B camera as the hybrid, because it's lighter, and then I could maybe put in a gimbal or a slider or something just to get me my shot. Why am I going to go for a medium format camera with big bulky lenses and then point at someone's like, this is my A cam, and I have to have a different mount for it? So I have to have a GFX mount for it and stuff like that. And yeah, I get that they're doing all the sensor cropping so you can put something else on it and stuff, but I don't. It's stupid. Honestly, it's just so stupid. You either are into the X system or the GFX system. The two things are separate, and to me, they're not connected at all. It's like you either want to go medium format or you want to go.
Man's vexed,
Well, if you have your X mount, imagine you spent like 6 years building up your X mount series lenses and ecosystem, And then they're like, oh yeah, well, if you want to get into our top range, videography, you're gonna have to go to the GFX.
So it sounds like you feel that Fuji has done us dirty by saying, here's the X-H2s, but actually, no. Look at this beautiful GFX. This is our true video capability. We're not actually going to take any of these features and supplement our X line.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I want the GFX 100 Mark II. It looks great. Like, I love it.
Logic would dictate that after showing off and flexing their muscles of like, look, we're capable as a company, they should have then been like, okay, after a few months, be like, hey, by the way, new firmware update, you can now have all these cool features on the X-H2s as well.
Yeah, and I think it comes a point, and I'm sure many Fuji filmmakers, who are shooting video primarily with their cameras, will get to the point where a client will need, or like you're going to have like a higher end shoot where you're going to start needing more pro features. Like, okay, give me an X-H2s in an FX3 style body. At least try and be more video centered.
Filmmaking centric.
Yeah, like
narrative filmmaking centric.
But even an FX3 style body would still be great for corporates if you wanted to have like an A cam.
Oh yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you had that as a, so let's say we got the Cine X-H2s, right? The Cine version.
Imagine.
Yeah, like a nice little boxy camera.
Oh, a cube?
I actually would really love a cube. Like I shot with the Red Gemini a few times, and just holding that in your hands just feels like a proper camera, and you just feel like, okay, everything's working, like the mounts, the stuff. It just feels like the experience is going to be more organic. And also, if you have a more video-centered Fuji camera, you then don't need to try and please the photography side of stuff, because I feel like that's what limits the camera from reaching its true potential. So then they can actually make the image a little bit softer. They can focus more on like handling mixed lighting a lot better, which I feel like Fujifilm doesn't do the best in. So there's so many things, but we need a natural progression from hybrid to a cinema camera. Like almost every brand has that apart from Nikon. So Panasonic's got a cine camera, Sony's got a cine camera. Who did I mention?
Nikon, Panasonic. Did you mention Canon?
Canon's got a cinema camera. Like,
did you mention Ricoh?
Well, that's a toy camera.
Pentax.
Pentax. Oh yeah, Pentax has released a new camera. Oh, that's gonna do well. But the fact is of progression onto that side, like in that core business, like they at least give us one product.
You said one thing that made me think, yeah, they should, is that they make cinema lenses, but they don't make the body. I've been to sets crazy. With like Rankin and like top filmmakers in the UK, and they're all using Fuji glass on all their cinema camera, on the Area Alexas and stuff. But then you mentioned to me like they have the glass, but there's no body.
And the MK lenses are beautiful. Like honestly, they're just really nice to work with. They're so lightweight for cine lenses.
That's true. I remember we did House of Fuji and I picked one up and I was just like pretending to vlog for it.
It's super light. I feel like it's lighter than my 7 Artisans lens, which is hefty. But it's like, that's where I mean, where it doesn't make sense to try and like promote the GFX and say like, oh, this is our flagship and stuff like that. Like you should be focusing that attention on a missing part of your market, and that's where I kind of get annoyed at the moment with Fujifilm and what they're doing. Like I need to know that they're going to give us that one day, and I'm not waiting 3 or 4 years from it, because right now I'm thinking like I want to get more professional results. I just need a camera that gives me video features.
Sounds like you're giving an ultimatum to Fuji, bro.
It's going to be, you're going to have to really make it up to me in firmware updates, or we're breaking up. No, I don't think I would ever leave the Fujifilm system. But I feel like when I want to take my film work more seriously,
well, the budgets go higher and people expect more of you, and the sets kind of get a bit more complex.
And I just need a camera that like really will allow me to have control over the image. And as I said, it's just too sharp, and maybe ProRes RAW will be the way, but
test it and let me know, man.
Yeah, but it's just the file sizes are huge.
But then you have to connect it via Ninja, right?
Yeah, and I don't like
See,
that.
This is one thing that made me switch from the XT3. Because all the other things, there's obviously a solution, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Imagine doing corporate events and then you always have to bring a Ninja. And then you have to think of a second battery system.
Yeah.
And then if you plug it into the wall or something, what if someone like trips over the cable? And
yeah.
if that recorder stops, the main camera will stop recording as well. So you always have to think of two systems.
Yeah.
So having no recording limit, ProRes internal, saves me having to use a Ninja now.
That was definitely a pro, yeah.
It's huge. It's a game changer, man.
That's also one of my favorite things.
Like we came to the studio today, I forgot to bring my monitor and my stuff. If I had my XT3, I don't think we would be recording this episode right now.
Yeah, no.
Because I wouldn't be able to trust it. How would I know that where we are, would it be, turning off in 30 minutes?
Well, that's probably like, as we were saying, like that ties in with the screen flipping out. So we can create content by having the screen out and we can see where we are. We can create content because, we've got ProRes and, well, I mean, not that that's necessary, but having ProRes inside and being able to shoot corporate stuff and, films without the need for an external recorder has been great as well, So, definitely like not needing the Ninja has been one of the best things about it, I think.
For me, it's literally one of the main reasons why I switched.
What's your one thing you hate about the camera?
Ooh, what do I hate about the X-H2s? I don't really hate the camera. The one thing if Fuji was like, well, wave your magic wand and we'll do it.
Yeah.
Is I just wish you could just have the articulating screen just kind of like flip like the XT3 as well, having the hybrid.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything else is pretty much sweet and solid. If anything, I'm just more upset about Fuji with the firmware updates.
Okay.
Because, like you said, they flex their muscles. They showed off, like, look what we're capable as a company, but they don't bring it into the camera. My friend Tom, if you're watching, shout out to you, man. They released a firmware update.
Yeah.
And tracking in photos used to be amazing. Used to be good as Canons, apparently. I never used the feature because I shoot with single point AF, so it never really occurred to me. But according to him, and he's right because I tested it after, the autofocus went so crap that it was unusable when using subject tracking.
Wow. Okay.
He wrote to them. They never, basically, they acknowledged.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they fixed it. But it was so bad to the point where he switched back to Canon. You know what I mean? Like, you build a community, not that it matters, but it kind of helps, right? Like when you have friends that use the same camera, you stick with the camera from a long time, you share ideas, you share knowledge like we're doing now. Someone out there is shooting with this camera and they just got it. Like something that we said today might have helped them in some way, shape or form, right? Or at least given them some kind of knowledge that they didn't have previously. So people dropping out because of silly mistakes, I think as a business, it's kind of annoying. I wish they could just tighten up on that side of things.
Yeah. And actually...
Because the product is great, man. When it works, oh my gosh. You just feel like a superhero. Results. Like, I show up to an event, they're like, oh, can we record this 1 hour speech? And I'm like, yep, got it. Can you also do this shot right here? Yeah, got it. Like, whatever they need.
Yeah.
I don't feel limited. The only limitation now is me as a human being, not the camera.
So my hot take on what I don't like about the camera, and it's kind of a weird one.
All right.
It is kind of weird, and it's actually something you just mentioned, is the autofocus.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. It is better than the XT3s, but I feel like it's not. And I don't know what it is.
Okay, so from my experience, anything that's brand new, for example, this 18mm 1.4, I can trust the autofocus.
Yeah.
It's great. And I'm so glad that the firmware update didn't disrupt that, because otherwise, I'd probably be back to Canon by now as well, because it's a big deal, the autofocus update. If I put an 18mm f2 for video, if the scene, if you know, it might handle the scene.
Yeah, yeah.
But if we flip round where you have a computer screen, you have a plant, and you have all these other like, you have a busy background, I don't think it would do well.
Yeah, I just felt like my X-T3 would pick up subjects quicker.
Seriously.
I don't know.
Which lens are you talking about though?
I mean, I've used my Viltrox. I've used so the 35mm 1.4, like the old lens, definitely like can't keep up with the system. Like
I find it fine. I think you dropped yours or something.
Someone kicked mine. I can't believe it. And now it was like, it still works. I need to test it, but it's like the autofocus has gone a little bit.
Tomorrow, use mine.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Just don't drop it, all right?
Well, I left it. So I had like a station where I was sat down and I put like my camera stuff. You could clearly see like where I was sitting and stuff like that. And then one guy stood up and then just his big hefty boot just going boom, and then the lens just flew across the room, and I was like, ah. So yeah. Anyway, I'll send it to Kex. They'll take it. So yeah, the autofocus, I feel like, is inconsistent between lenses, and obviously it's been improved, but you're going to get better results with the newer lenses. But I've still only got like the kit lens, the 35, and the Viltrox. I was thinking to unify my lenses by either getting a Tamron, the Tamron kit lens, whatever. But that's 2.8 all the way through, and it's got stabilization as well. So I thought that could be my all-in-one, because I think that's very essential. Like I use that 18 to 55 a lot.
You do. And I think it's been really, really helpful on corporate shoots when I say, look, can you kind of be my second shooter and like just capture stuff? Yeah. And then when I receive the files back, I'm like, oh, sick, I've got tight, I've got mid, I've got wide. Yeah. And you're just there, and you don't have to be like, oh, sorry, let me go and run and get another lens.
And where it kind of limits me a bit is obviously when you get to the telephoto end, you start the minimum's like f4 or f5 or something like that, and sometimes I lose too much light, and I don't really get the separation that I want as well.
I think for video, f2.8 is fine because your shutter is at 50. So I think you're okay. For photography, I can't ever go back to 2.8. I need minimum f2.
Really?
Yeah, because think about it, like if you're shooting people, you want your shutter to absolute minimum be 125. But even then, like people would argue like, you should perhaps start shooting at least at 200 frames per second.
Well, I think the thing for me is like when I'm shooting narrative films, I like my f-stop to be consistent, and I want my ISO ideally to be consistent as well, and my white balance. Because when you start changing frames, so what a lot of people will do is like they'll shoot one scene at f2.8, and then another, like the next clip they'll go at f4, and they don't realize you're not creating continuity there. So it's really, so that's why I kind of want the Tamron lenses, because if I go to 55 or whatever it is, I'll have 2.8, and if I go to 18, I'll have 2.8. So I'll have a consistent video image throughout, and that helps me professionally. Whereas now, I kind of like, it doesn't have a uniform look to it, but it's still a great lens and it still works perfectly. But yeah, I just think I need to get like more modern, updated lenses. So the Tamron. And then maybe I'll have like a trinity of Viltrox lenses, because the 56 is great. The new 27 looks
That's
great.
Interesting. I still need to do my 13.
He's got a Viltrox 13.
To be honest, when I do the review, at least it will be with like, hey, I've had it for a year, as opposed to, so I just received this lens from Viltrox 1 week ago, and here I'm going to tell you all about the cool features and the cons. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at least it's coming from a place of like, I can really tell you what is good for and what it's not good for.
I'm sure their marketing team will love it. Hi. 5 years ago, we sent you a lens before World War III started.
Calling me up, man.
He's like, so I've used it in World War III, and these are the results that I got. As the bomb came towards us at f1.4, the tracking was perfect. Jokes aside. I think that the newer lenses definitely will benefit from the X-H2s series. I feel like the older lenses just, I don't know, they're noisy. They're okay. They do work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's just I don't have consistent AF as I do when I'm using like a more modern lens. Um, and yeah, you know, I just felt like on the X-T3 everything was more consistent. And I don't know if that's just because of the speed of which the AF worked. And I feel like on this system, it wants to work faster than it can. And sometimes it tells me that something's in focus and it's not.
When's the last time you update the firmware?
Uh, I always, as soon as the firmware comes out, I actually pretty much update
I ain't
it.
updating mine then. If that's your experience, then because
Yeah. It
no.
could be the camera. You know, sometimes you get dodgy cameras and stuff.
You know what? In the comments down below, tell us your experience with AF because from what he's saying, I'm not experiencing.
Yeah,
I'll be totally honest.
It's hit and miss. It's hit and miss. Sometimes it like with my kit lens, I get more consistent.
I think it's lens dependent still.
Yeah.
I don't think we've reached the point with Fuji where Canon was, where like it doesn't matter what lens you put on, like you'll get a good autofocus. I think it's still lens dependent, 100%.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's a weakness in Fuji. It's like we don't have consistently good autofocus lenses because even the new ones like got slow. Like what they re-released the 56, right?
Yeah, and people in the I haven't tried it personally. I just held it, but people in the reviews are saying, look, if you're expecting like you know, brand new lightning fast autofocus, it's not that much better. It might be like 10% if anything, but in real world use case, you ain't gonna be like, it's not like the 18mm f2 versus the 18mm 1.4. It's not that huge of a jump.
And I think that for me is a problem because when you think about like Canon's got the RF lenses, and yeah, they are expensive and they're heavy or whatever, but you know that when you get those lenses, you're going to get consistent autofocus speed across all those lenses. And I think professionally, that helps you a lot. Like you'll have confidence in your product that, okay, the AF is going to work really great on here and stuff. Okay, the Fujifilms have got like style and they've got like character and stuff like that. And that's great where you've got time to make those mistakes. But I do worry like in a more professional setting, like, are we gonna, is that gonna affect me? I think one time when I was using the 35, like I don't know if the AF was working or not properly.
I think your lens is clapped, bro.
Yeah, it's been abused. It's been abused. But you know, it's still they're newer lenses. Like they'll say like one lens is super fast, and then they'll talk about another lens where it's got great character, but they haven't updated the speed. Like, be consistent with your manufacturing. Make all your lenses fast focusing because that's what we need now. We need like AF to be on, and not just fast, but actually on point, because sometimes it's fast focus and it's like, yeah, this is in focus now. You take the picture, it's not in focus.
I think yes and no. I think there needs to be a level of consistency. Like, okay, a lens should at least have this level of like good autofocus, at least be good as like, I don't know, pick a lens that should like decent. Everything should at least be minimum good as a kit lens, right? Like, you know, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because from my understanding, to have a lens of character means that you can't put the same kind of like magnet focus focus mechanism. For example, the 90mm, I think, has one of the fastest AF motors, and it runs on magnets. So when you pick up the lens, for example, the 18mm has the same thing. You pick up the lens, you feel like there's broken glass.
Yeah.
But it's actually the motor's not on.
Oh, okay.
Try putting that system on the 35mm 1.4, which has a protruding element.
Yeah,
it's just not physically possible. But I feel like, yeah, there should be like a baseline. Okay, like all lenses should have like this level of competent autofocus.
Yeah, I think like to make things easier, they should just start introducing like naming conventions for lenses, like a set of lenses. These are our fastest focusing set of lenses, you know, and then focus on having focal ranges for that. Oh, these are our lenses and characters.
I think, yeah, because if you're into Fuji, you get it, right? You understand the difference between the different types of autofocus, which lens will have the best, you know, the f2 ranges will be the good, you know, reliable ones for video. But whenever someone's like, what camera shall I buy? And then you're like, yeah, you know, get a Fuji because the colors are great. But then they're like, so what lens shall I get? And then you're thinking to yourself, oh, this person's going to be shooting this. Do not buy this lens. You're going to struggle.
Yeah.
And you have to explain to them like the difference between the lenses and like why the autofocus on, you know, this lens might not be the best for you. And it's like, why am I having to explain that to you?
The lenses are a weakness of the system because you can, if you go to like Sony or you go to the Canon, you can just say like, okay, this.
I need a wide lens. Give me a wide lens for
Yeah.
filming myself. They're not gonna. You know that you don't need to tell them which one. You just pick the one that they like in terms of perspective, and it will work.
Because it's got the speed and it's got the build.
But with Fuji, you have to be very specific and be like, okay, you want a wide lens, but is it for photo? Because if it's for photo, this lens is fine.
Yeah.
The 16mm 1.4 would be absolutely fine for photo. But I want to also use it on a gimbal and track people around on 1.4. Do not you get the 16mm 1.4, that's going to be a problem. You should actually get this lens.
Yeah.
So for someone that's coming into the system for the first time, it kind of makes it a bit, there's a few things that need to figure out.
Yeah, it is I feel like that is a stumbling block.
I mean, it's great for us. We get to make a lot of content about it. But it's not, but in theory, it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, I think that's something that, obviously the other companies have had time to build on that and stuff.
Finesse the lineup.
Yeah, I feel like Fuji wasn't really taken seriously until like the X-T3 came out.
Until 2018, 2017, it wasn't really an option for people.
And that they're relatively like kind of still new in this space, they've already made leaps and bounds with the camera. So I'm not like criticizing them a lot. All I'm saying is that going forward, when you start to introduce a new lens to everyone, but then say like, oh well, you don't really focus on the autofocus, it tells me that you're more worried about pleasing character design rather than the functionality of the lens, because I'm sure people want consistently fast focusing lenses that they'll be able to use, and if that takes you 3 or 4 years to develop, do that, but have a line of lenses to do that. Because I know about the f2 lenses. I had the 50mm one, and the problem with that is that they're great and they're fast, but if you wanted to then manually pull focus, they were just terrible for it.
Yes, I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah. Anyway, I think it was quite a while we've been filming for. So let's wrap this up. In terms of the X-H2s, after a year and a half, are you happy?
Thumbs up from me.
It's a thumb up from me. If you haven't already checked out Alps Lifey, we met on YouTube, ironically.
Yeah.
Back in, I think it was like 2019, 2018.
I don't want to know how old I am now.
Yeah, let's not go there.
I'm getting too old now.
I've literally just gone over the 30 mark, so I don't want to explore that. Yeah, good to be back on the channel. We're going to try and make a few more videos again. Leave a comment down below of what other types of topics you'd like us to cover. I personally would love to go over more on the business side of photography and video, considering, we're now kind of working together and we've got clients that know us personally now and we're on a regular basis. I think it'd be good to share some do's, don'ts, some tips and tricks, give some value out there.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone wants to see my latest film, Pray, it's on my channel, film with the X-H2s, the 700 25mm lens, shot like 99%. There was like one shot that wasn't shot on that lens, so that lens is really beautiful. Quite happy with the film. So if you like to see any narrative stuff, it's there for you to see. And if you have any questions about that, you can answer it again on another video.
Perfect. See ya.
Peace.